Hello everybody, I hope that you're all doing well. Welcome back to a new video. My name is Evelyn Borta, and today I want to dig a little bit deeper into this climate crisis and the global warming, climate change that we started to hear more and more about these past few days because of the heat wave. However, this is not a new concept, and this whole narrative has been building for a few years now. So yes, I want to discuss that, and then also how the carbon footprint measurements and how this carbon war is related to what is going on now. And then also how a possible lockdown, climate lockdown, is being related to all this, what is happening. And yeah, there has been a lot of media coverage in the past few days about the heat wave that is hitting all different parts of the world. And I'm not saying that is not a real thing, because where I live as well, it is a real thing. It's super hot in my room right now as well. So I'm dealing with that, and it's hard for me to record this video, but it's summer. It's not the first time that we are facing a situation like this. We are facing weather like this. So the exaggeration is really reaching interesting heights, and I want to cover this in today's video. But before I get into that, thank you so much everybody who is supporting me on my Patreon. If you want to support my work, then you can do it there. Check out what I'm posting there, and if you like it, you are more than welcome to join. And then also, please join my Telegram, everyone who is using Telegram, because I have a channel there now and I'm posting updates. And then also, everybody feel free to subscribe to my BitChute as well, because what I'm posting here on YouTube, mostly I'm posting there as well. It's a great way to have a backup platform, because you never know what's gonna happen, right? YouTube is not very safe. So guys, please check those platforms out. And then obviously you will find the links to those channels in the description down below. All right, so let's talk about the climate change, the climate crisis that humanity has been facing for a while, and that is being presented in the mainstream media as a real threat for humanity and for our species. And we need to do something urgently about this, otherwise we will destroy ourselves. Since the beginning of the pandemic, there has been consistent attempts that were trying to associate pandemics with the climate change in the public mind. So they were trying to link the two directly, saying that more pandemics will be caused by this climate change because we will have more viruses in the future as a result of this climate crisis. And what we have been seeing in the past few years was a rebranding of the climate change, not making it anymore an environmental problem, but making it a public health problem. And back in 2020, so just at the beginning of the pandemic, there was already an article published by the British Medical Journal saying that the World Health Organization should declare climate change a public health emergency. And then the other thing that we kept hearing, and I remember it very well because I was in London back in March 2020, there were headlines talking about the lockdowns, the COVID lockdowns, healing the planet because there was less pollution because of that. So that was another propaganda move that was circulating within mainstream media platforms and social media platforms as well, that how much we are healing the planet by being locked down in our homes. And then there were articles asking as well, and headlines saying that if we can do that for COVID, why we cannot do that for the environment? So this idea that human beings are very destructive and we are a threat to our own species has been planted in the human mind, in the public mind, for quite a long time. And I'm not saying that there's nothing true in that, because we absolutely have to pay attention to how we are treating our own planet, not to abuse our planet, and really to have respect for all living creatures. There are absolutely many problems in our society that need addressing. And there are some environmental issues as well that need to be fixed. But we can solve these problems and we can find solutions to these problems in a decentralized way, not in a way that we are being asked to do these things. So if we connect the dots, we will understand that this is not about fixing environmental problems, but this is about control. But you will understand more what I'm talking about a little bit later on in this video. So whenever something occurs that is a natural occurrence, for example, like this heat wave, which we can argue about, of course, and we can argue about all the things that are happening, all the wildfires, if they are occurring naturally or they are being manufactured. But even when things occur in a natural fashion, it is a great opportunity for the global government and the financial and political elites to jump on the occasion and to bring forward a new narrative, to bring forward a new agenda. This is what we are seeing now as well with this heat wave narrative. It's a great opportunity to use this as a pushing forward for their agenda of climate emergency, climate crisis, climate lockdowns. There was in the UK as well a national emergency, just because last week, one of the days, I think last Wednesday, temperatures were very high in the UK. And so what? So it is insane that they are jumping on things that were a few years ago unnoticeable and no one really talked about it. We did have very high temperatures when I was a child as well. So in the past 30, 40 years, not many things have changed. What is happening is that our Earth, our planet, is going through certain cycles, certain life cycles. Climate change is not a new thing. It is a cycle that is repeating, and it is not subject to the pollution, however, that is contributing as well to the global warming, but it's not contributing as much as it is being presented by scientists. The climate is changing based on the Earth's position compared to the central sun. So it is a cyclical change. So they are really pushing for this narrative right now that will eventually lead to the enforcement of carbon controls and the carbon footprint measurements. But what I have noticed is that their narrative is not really sticking because it doesn't have the same effect as COVID had. It doesn't have the same fear-mongering effect. So what we are seeing now is the tampering with the statistics, manufacturing very alarming statistics as well, and the fudging of the death numbers. And then also this narrative around the wildfires, that the wildfires are being caused by the climate change, when I think just recently has been discovered that in many cases it was caused by arson. So the agenda for this global government among the political and financial elites has been called a conspiracy theory by many people. And unfortunately, many people are unable to wrap their head around this notion that actually is being said by them, that they do want a global government. Maybe they don't use the same expression for that, but they absolutely use expressions like New World Order, Great Reset. So eventually, the whole thing is leading in the same direction, a total control of the population. And that involves also depopulation because we are too many of us. So all this is something that we are hearing over and over again, and they are saying it very loudly, that they are pro-population control, that they are of the opinion that there's too many of us on this planet, and that will lead to major problems, and we have to do something about that. And those of you that have joined my Telegram know what I'm talking about here, because I can say that surprisingly and then even shockingly, certain spiritual gurus as well are on the same opinion. So yeah, we are seeing more and more people that are actually mainstream characters, and they are working for the same agenda.
Cannot hide away from human population growth because, you know, it underlies so many of the other problems. All these things we talk about wouldn't be a problem if there was the size of population that there was 500 years ago.
The benefits there in terms of reducing sickness, reducing the population growth, it really allows a society a chance to take care of itself.
We are 7 billion people now on the planet. We're going up to 9 billion. Think about 3 billion people entering the middle class, all wanting cars, mobile phones, computers, eating meat. I mean, this is a huge pressure on the resources we have. Why do you want to own your cell phone? I mean, you want the function, you want the service, right? Why do you want to own a cell phone if you can just lease it? And if you lease, why shouldn't you lease your refrigerator or your washing machine or your dishwasher? Or why do you want to own it? I mean, it's not like the plastic in the middle. It's like, I own a broke dishwasher. I mean, you want to go into a business model where the company owns it.
The full extent and the systemic and structural changes which will happen. However, we do know that global energy systems, food systems and supply chains will be deeply affected.
Welcome to the year 2030. Welcome to my city. Or should I say, our city. I don't own anything. I don't own a car. I don't own a house. I don't own any appliances or any clothes. In our city, we don't pay any rent because someone else is using our free space whenever we do not need it. My living room is used for business meetings when I'm not there. Shopping? I can't really remember what that is. For most of us, it has been turned into choosing things to use. Sometimes I find this fun, and sometimes I just want the algorithm to do it for me. It knows my tastes better than I do by now. My biggest concern is all the people who do not live in our city, those we lost on the way. Those who decided that it became too much, all this technology. Those who felt obsolete and useless when robots and AI took over parts of our jobs. I get annoyed about the fact that I have no real privacy, nowhere I can go and not be registered. I know that somewhere, everything I do, think, and dream of is recorded.
Oh, hi. I'm so glad you're on time. I'm V. I'm looking forward to showing you around Plandopolis today. My husband works from home. He's a virtual engineer working on one of the city's desalination plants. He controls the robots who do all the important maintenance. I think he basically plays computer games for a living. You ready to go? Have you got your calorie card open on your smartphone? I registered your visit with Slick Travel Corp the other day, so they've allotted you a journey time to match mine. It makes so much sense, doesn't it? Switch off brain and go to work. With this many people around, I'm glad there's a mega computer in charge. We're so lucky. Our kids were allocated a school quite near my practice, so I can drop them off on the way. It saves on our calorie ration. Well, it won't be long until the little darlings get their career announcements. They've been working so hard, so I'm sure they'll get something good. Not that there's anything wrong with fixing carbon scrubbers for a living or anything. Are you hungry? Let's pop to the market as we're passing. Right, what's on the menu this month? No, not meat. It's not your birthday. The Global Food Council are doing a really good job of keeping food production going. I mean, you don't get the choice you used to, but we're better off than most. I think it's probably easiest to walk from here. You barely see a car in the city centre nowadays, unless you're rich. Well, the state knows they just aren't practical anymore. We're all trying to meet our global carbon deal. Electric bikes are so much better for getting around our neighbourhood. And why waste valuable space on car parks when you can use them to grow food? I don't care what you say, Alex. They don't deserve to live in that ghetto. They are completely disconnected. No high-speed transport system, no new internet. They miss out on jobs and many essential services too. Oh, hi again. What a day. I had to make an emergency visit to the Cry Freedom ghettos. I mean, I miss my sister like mad, but I'm glad they went when they moved to New Amsterdam. They're safe from climate change on the floating city. That must be her now. It's much easier to meet up with friends virtually now. So many cities have banned cars in central areas.
So even when people accept the evidence around this and around the fact that the financial and political institutions want a new world order, they still cannot wrap their head around the notion that we are being controlled. And the fact that these politicians and organizations and institutions are actually working together. What many people that are in denial are saying is that the establishment is being driven by greed. And these people are way too narcissistic in order to be able to work together. So how many times we have heard that from people? The main idea around what is going on in the world is that things are random. There's no connection between them. The world elites cannot work together. And the extreme opinions of people around a global governance and the creation of a global government is just a conspiracy theory. So these are coping mechanisms. These are coping mechanisms of the public. And the amount of gaslighting and denial that has been going on in the public and in the collective consciousness is unbelievable. So New World Order, Great Reset, whatever we want to call it, it does have the same agenda. And now there's a new organization called the Council for Inclusive Capitalism. And I talked about that as well in my Telegram. And basically this has a concept of shared economy. And we have the Vatican as well that is being involved in this whole ideology, and its main ideology is very similar to the World Economic Forum's one, is that basically you will own nothing and you will be happy. So it's a rebranded version of communism. So what is the concept of it? The concept of it is that you don't have to worry about your financial situation. You don't have to worry anymore about your economic future, but the cost of it will be your freedom. So you will lose your freedom. So the mission of this Council for Inclusive Capitalism is to enforce carbon controls and also taxation with the purpose of net zero emissions. And as I said, it's very similar to the World Economic Forum's concept because their ideology is based on this green economy. So one of their purposes, one of their missions is the green economy. And there's a big push for that so they can implement quotas on energy usage. So what does that mean? It means that you will have a certain amount of electricity, water, so basically energy, that you will be allowed to use per month. So you will have a monthly allowance for that. And if you exceed that allowance, that electricity, water, and other allowances, then what they can do is that they can just shut down your appliances that have been overused, and they will do that in the name of climate change regulations. So what we are facing right now is another scenario of problem, reaction, solution. So the problem is the government deemed climate change to be the most pressing issue facing civilizations that needs to be solved. The reaction of the public is that they start to demand solutions, they start to demand protection and aid in order to combat the problem. And then the solution is, which is being offered, is the governments coming to rescue with their sustainability goals. And this is where sustainable development comes in picture, the sustainable development of the United Nations. So what is sustainable development, which I have studied about a lot at the university, which I didn't know anything about. I didn't know what the agenda was about. I thought that it was such a cool solution. So basically the ideology of the sustainable development is creating a world where economic growth is possible and still flourishes without harming the planet and without harming the environment, as long as the world is adopting their goals. And I think there are like 17 goals or something like that. So sustainable development is claiming that it can find solutions to the already existing problems, but those things can only be achieved if the world adopts their own ideology, their reality basically. And this is where the net zero ideology comes in picture, and the carbon footprint control and taxation also. This is what the World Economic Forum stands for. This is what this Council for Inclusive Capitalism stands for as well. And then the United Nations. So all these big institutions are standing for the same thing, that we can only stop global warming if we reduce our carbon footprint. And we can see all these unelected individuals and CEOs of big corporations joining this initiative as well about the net zero emissions. And for example, Tesla just recently said to its customers to limit the charges of their electric cars due to the heat wave. So even if you have an electric car, you are no exception. Your usage of the electricity and the energy itself will be limited. And they are constantly propagating now this idea that energy is not sufficiently available because of the summers brought on by this climate change. And then also there's a shutting down of many power plants because they are horribly polluting the environment. Now all of a sudden there's a shutting down of all those power plants. So they can say that energy is not available, that we have an energy crisis and we need to do something about that. That hasn't been a problem, right? For so many generations, that hasn't been a problem for decades. But now all of a sudden, it's a real threat. Now when we have to really push for this narrative and this fear-mongering, now all of a sudden, everything needs to be eco-friendly. We have to have a green economy. But all those private jets that are consuming a lot of fuel and are also needing a lot of energy and they are polluting the environment big time, they are not a problem. Our capitalism has failed us. The foundations of our economy need to be rebuilt. We need a new world order where everyone is equal. And the masses really think that those that created the problem in the first place are not going to be the ones that will benefit. They really think that these people will create a system that will not be beneficial for them. In other words, they will stop being the problem. People really think that. And that is because not many people were yet affected personally by these changes. But when the time comes that many people will be affected by these changes, their livelihood will be affected by these changes, when their financial situation will be affected by these new carbon currencies as well, and the carbon footprint and the regulations, these climate regulations, then many will wake up to reality. And we have been seeing a waking up all over the world last year as well, and especially this year with all these protests. But the whole thing hasn't reached its peak yet. So there's much more. There's definitely much more to come. So what are these carbon currencies or carbon credit that will be also like a digital currency, which they want to tie with the carbon allowance and the carbon usage? So Patrick Wood, in his book called Technocracy Rising, and I think the book was written in 2010, I'm not exactly sure, but he talks about the green economy of the future and how this will look like. And he is saying, quote unquote, that forces are already at work to position a new carbon currency as the ultimate solution to global calls for poverty reduction, population control, environmental control, global warming, energy allocation, and blanket distribution for economic wealth. So this carbon currency will be based on the regular allocation of available energy to the people of the world. And if we think about carbon, then we can think about a more spiritual and esoteric meaning of this carbon allowance and carbon control and the reduction of carbon, because we are carbon-based creatures and all life is carbon-based. So when you start a war against carbon, you start a war against life as well. And when you start demonizing carbon as the new enemy, then you start demonizing life as well and organic living as an enemy. So this is where this psychological warfare, this psychological operation comes from. And also it ties us to this transhumanist agenda that everything needs to be artificial. And you as an organic human being, you are inferior. This is their mechanism of thinking, that you as a human being are so inferior and so incapable, and humanity is so distrustful and irresponsible as well, that every single facet of their existence needs to be controlled, needs to be regulated and restricted. And therefore, the population growth needs to be controlled and restricted. So you as a human being and your existence need to be restricted. So the action plan, the blueprint, is to inventory and to control all living creatures, all water, all land, all construction, and all means of production, all energy, all education, and all human beings. And everything, with no exception, has to be connected to the Internet of Things. And whatever is not being connected there needs to be demonized because it's bad. So the long-term agenda that was initially called Agenda 21, but they realized that things will not be established and implemented by 2021, so they needed to change the name of it, and now it's called Agenda 2030. And that is to introduce a social credit system that is based on carbon credits or carbon footprint. And the idea of these carbon credits is that you will be receiving these credits based on how much carbon you are using, and then also based on your behavior. And there's a card already, a MasterCard, that is available in Sweden, which is tracking every single transaction of yours, every single purchase of yours, and how much carbon you are using every single day. So there's a real psychological operation that is happening there with this carbon usage and making you even feel guilty about how much you are using every day. So this card is called Everyday Climate Action, Global Climate Action, And the back of the card, there's a sentence saying that I am taking responsibility for every transaction I make to help protect the planet. So there's a real brainwashing here with these credit cards already. And this is just the beginning of this whole narrative, of this whole agenda. There will be probably apps that are measuring your carbon footprint and how much carbon you're using, maybe how much you're breathing as well. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case as well. So as I said, there's a demonization of carbon. And what they want to do is to make you associate every purchase with an alleged carbon cost, according to the faulty manufactured climate change science. Climate change science that is being manufactured by their crazy reality. That is not even a problem. We are carbon. We are carbon-based creatures. We are living in a world that is carbon-based as well. So what we are seeing right now, again, with this scenario is that they really want you to opt into their crazy manufactured reality, their new normal. This is, again, a new normal. And they want you to swallow that propagandistic idea of carbon footprint, and they want you to feel guilty about consuming energy and consuming services, consuming energy, which is your birthright. Consuming carbon is your birthright. So we are seeing this crazy reality being created again, and people voluntarily opting into it. They also want to delude you that by doing all this, you are helping actually Earth, that you are helping and saving the planet. When in reality, looking at carbon as an enemy, you are looking at yourself as an enemy. You are looking at your life as an enemy. It's a demonizing of life. This diverts actually away attention from the genuine forces of pollution. We are not looking at the genuine forces of pollution by this. We are looking at the wrong thing again. This has nothing to do with the environment. This only has to do with making you believe that you have to change your behavior. This is about creating a new social norm of low carbon behavior. It's about making you feel guilty and making you an OCD about every single action of yours. It's about changing your action and performing a carbon budgeting on yourself, where you will be no longer able to function properly because the only thing that you will think about is how much damage I'm creating to the environment by consuming carbon. What a horrible creature I am that I'm craving carbon, that I'm exhaling carbon, that I'm being made of carbon. So the only solution is to opt out of this reality. And as I said it in my previous videos, we need people that are thinking outside of the box, that are able to think outside of these systems. We need independent thinkers. And again, I have to say that there will come a point where the only solution will be to opt out and build anew. And we need humankind to work hand in hand. We need new innovations, new solutions, where we can voluntarily speak up and we can voluntarily start cooperating with each other, building new systems. We need a free market of ideas where we can find new solutions. We will have to turn off this centralized technology. And I don't know how much technology will be part of our everyday life, and how much technology will be part of this organic path of humankind. So technology is not excluded completely, but we have to know where's the limit and where we end as organic human beings and where technology begins. We have to have our boundaries when it comes to technology and not to replace the organic human evolution with this technology. So it's a very sensitive thing to think about. And again, I will say that at the end of each video almost, that we need this heart-based approach, this intuitive approach. And we have the teachings of these old mystery schools that are serving with the basis of our new path, of our organic path. And we also have a lot of help that is coming from highly evolved beings. So only the Christ consciousness and this Christ impulse can help us to find the right path for us, to find the path that is not damaging for humanity, for humankind, where technology is enhancing the human experience and it's not replacing it. All right, guys, so this was today's video. I hope it made sense and it resonated. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening. As I said, if anyone wants to support my work, you can do it on Patreon. and also join my Telegram and my BitChute as well. So thank you for being here, everybody. Take care of yourselves, and I cannot wait to see you next time.